Good evening. My name is Douglas Crawford, and this is my final presentation for the headlamps and artificial lighting techniques used in historical Southern California mining. Why are headlamps historical? As someone who's been on several mining tours and been exploring caves for most of my life, there's nothing more that snaps people into the reality of what kind of conditions people were working in and what they had to deal with than turning the lights off in the middle of a tour with a group of people. And many people take for granted the luxury of being able to flip a switch and have light being able to see at night. Most of us can't imagine the struggles of having just one candle lit to see your workspace or to know where you're at inside of this mine in pitch black. Let alone how terrifying it must have been to have something go wrong, like a cave-in or an explosion, or if you injured yourself, how alone you must feel, or how claustrophobic people might get. The history and chronology of lighting in mines. So we start off with candle holders in the 1700s to the 1850s, oil headlamps and lanterns from 1850s to 1900, carbide lamps were used from 1900 to 1920, and electric headlamps were invented in 1915 and are still used to present day. Lighting the way in mines started with the most widely used method of lighting at the time, which was candles and open flame fires. They used candles as mainly light, but they used small fires inside like a coal stove or a wood burning stove to move air throughout the mine with convection. Later on, they used oil headlamps, which had a heavier soot output, but a brighter and longer lasting flame. So you had to put up with like a poorer air quality and being covered with soot, but you could see better as long as your eyes weren't blind from the oil getting in your eyes. Later on, they used carbide headlamps. They were the first method of lighting used by miners that had like a dimmer switch. And it was just a valve that would let more water onto the calcium carbide to make more acetylene gas and burn brighter and hotter. It produced the cleanest burn out of the aforementioned techniques of lighting, therefore improving air quality, even though it was still a burning reaction. So it was generally safer to use, but still not completely safe because you still had something hot burning on your head, even though it wasn't a flame. And then we have early electric headlamps invented by Thomas Edison in 1915. And they pretty much stayed the same throughout history from 1915 to present. All we did was improve the technology of, say, batteries, insulation on wires. We made them smaller and lighter and had them last longer. So candle holder identification. So candle holders come in various shapes and designs, but the most common that I could find was the one on the right, which sort of has a clay kind of pinch around the candle to hold it in place on the helmet. And then the picture on the left has a spike holding up the bottom of the candle. And you can really see how high it sits on the miner's head and how open that flame was to be put out anytime you knocked your head on something, or if you were to break it while banging your head on anything in the mine. The bottom, we talk about the dangers of having open flames in the mines. Mainly with coal mining, there's a lot of coal dust, which is highly flammable, and also the creation of coal makes methane gas and has it sit in pockets in the rock. So if you were to come into a pocket of methane, the flame would ignite the methane, you would be burned up, and other people might be injured. And a lot of mining accidents happened because of these open flame lighting systems. And it wasn't until the safety lamp was made that they were implemented mainly into these coal mines or other mines where the product was a flammable substance. Oil headlamps and lantern identifications. So these were known as the teapot design, and you can see why. It had a spout on one side, which would have a wick going down into the vat of oil and lard, and they would light that. And then on the other side, it had a handle or a hook, depending on if you had the lantern or the headlamp variation. And the center would be filled with a mixture of like kerosene oil and fat or lard. This was to cut down on cost because miners were not very wealthy. They were looking for the cheapest way to make it work. So the hook on the right picture was mounted to a bracket on the miner's hard hat. And they used these because they were generally sturdier than candles. That's why they grew in popularity, even though the flame was a lot more dirty burning. Next, we have carbide lamps used from 1900 to 1920. You can see the diagram on the left. They were basically a water chamber on top here and a carbide chamber on the bottom here. The water would then be let through this valve here and drip down onto the carbide, where the acetylene gas would be made, come up through the gas pipe, and then out to the burner tip here. You would light it on the striker assembly and it would burn. These also often had these reflectors on them to kind of direct the light that they made. And to make it brighter, you would just open that valve more and let water out at a faster rate. Historical electric headlamps. So they mainly all had the same components from 1915 until present. They all have batteries, which they started out with alkaline batteries. Then they moved to lead acid, and today's headlamps use like lithium ion batteries. The whole point was to make them smaller, as they started out with alkaline batteries that were attached to like your belt and would clip on, and they would have this wire run all the way up your back to the headlamp portion. So it was to make the batteries smaller and then to have them last longer. Also, alkaline batteries would have a tendency to be corrosive and release like an acid onto you, your clothes. They would eat through your clothes and burn your skin. So that wasn't very pleasant. So they just improved the battery technology. Next, they improved the wire technology, because nowadays we have them wrapped in a rubber insulator. Back then they were wrapped in like a weaved cloth, like a braided cloth, which was flammable. It did melt and catch on fire. So you know it's an older pack when it has cloth instead of rubber. And then the bulbs, they started out with large incandescent bulbs. The tendency is for the older ones to be larger and have a bigger filament in the middle. And then nowadays they use light emitting diode or LED lights. Mining in San Diego. There are 501 historic mines located in San Diego County, with target minerals ranging from minerals such as iron, copper, and gems like tourmaline and topaz, and of course, gold. The gold rush of 1846 was mainly in Northern California, but mining here in Southern California kicked off around the same time, a little bit later, more like the 1860s, around the time of the end of the Civil War, and past the late 1800s and the turn of the 1900s. And then based on this time frame, we're able to see that there's the wide range of technology used, and you can find them in all of the mines here in Southern California, from candle holders to electric lamps. This is a picture of the Eagle Mine from 1870, as you can see. It's located in Julian, California, and it's attached to the High Peak Mine higher up on the mountain. It was a network of 200 gold mines that were up in East County, San Diego, and it's still open for tours today if you want to go and check it out. It's pretty cool. So we're going to talk about the people of the mines and what these objects show us. They show us how dangerous it was to be working in the mines in the 19th century, and it makes us realize how tough these conditions were to work, and how hazardous like working conditions were, and what little they did to protect the employees of the mining company. But it also shows how desperate families were to make ends meet, or also how prideful they were for their work. The people that use much of the same techniques to mine coal in the eastern United States take a lot of pride in what they do and what their family heritage is. And there are my sources. Thank you very much.